Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to Newsroom. I'm your host, Omar Khalid. Today is 25th of October 2022. These are the stories that we will be discussing in detail during the course of the show. We will begin with our Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif's visit to Riyadh, where he attended the Future Investment Initiative today, and he addressed this summit today as well. He talked about very important points which include Pakistan's economy, the economic challenges, climate change, transformational times, Saudi Arabia's vision for the future, freelancing, and that Pakistan was open for business. This and more was discussed during the course of his speech. And also he's here in Riyadh on the invitation of King Salman. It's an important opportunity for Pakistan not only to further strengthen ties with the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, but also to project Pakistan's point of view after the recent floods that have devastated Pakistan. This is going to be our first segment. Pakistan-Saudi Arabia relations in the wake of this Future Investment Initiative summit that happened, and Pakistan's premier who of course attended it and also talked to the audience at this auspicious occasion. Our second segment, ladies and gentlemen, concerns the situation in Palestine. At least 6 Palestinians were killed by Israeli forces in occupied West Bank today. Also, Amnesty International has called on the International Criminal Court to investigate the possible war crimes following the unlawful attacks committed during Israelis' deadly assault on the Gaza Strip that happened in August this year. Two different developments, but nevertheless they highlight the atrocities that the Israelis have been committing on the Palestinians. This is going to be our second segment. Then we are going to talk about a new survey from Help Age International that talks about the impact of the floods on older people in Pakistan. It has revealed that hundreds are being put at risk, especially from the older section of the population, due to the decimation of health services and the rise of diseases such as malaria and diarrhea that could be killer for the older people, especially due to weaker immune systems. Then finally, we will be talking about a policeman who was guarding a police vaccination team in Pishin in Balochistan. He was shot dead by unidentified gunmen today. The commissioner of deputy commissioner instead of Pishin, Muhammad Yasir, has said that the assailant attacked the vaccination team in the Thrat area of Pishin. The policeman laid down his life in order to defend the polio team, and none of the members of the polio team were injured in this incident. This is going to be our last segment, last story. Let's begin with our first, that concerns the Future Investment Initiative Summit that happened today. Our Premier Shehbaz Sharif Saab, who attended it and also addressed this auspicious occasion and highlighted important points that plague the region that are also important for Pakistan. More in the following report.
The Kingdom of Saudi Arabia is convening the 6th edition of Future Investment Initiative, which is graced by world's foremost CEOs, policymakers, investors, entrepreneurs, and young leaders to shape the future of international investment in the global economy. Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif is in attendance of the Future Investment Initiative Summit at the invitation of Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman bin Abdulaziz. The visit of Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif to Saudi Arabia is of critical importance, as both the brotherly countries enjoy deep-rooted ties and have shared values, religion, and culture. Saudi Future Investment Initiative Summit is a momentous opportunity to seek investment in various sectors of Pakistan's economy. Prime Minister is using this opportunity to brief the global economic moguls and the investment firms about various investment opportunities existing in Pakistan and inviting them to invest in different sectors. The Future Investment Initiative was launched in 2017 as new economic paradigm for the world's largest crude exporter, which is trying to diversify away from oil under Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman.
Now, to discuss more on the issue, the relationship, the friendship and the brotherly cooperative relationship that also exists between Pakistan and the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, and also this Future Investment Initiative, the 6th edition of which was held in Riyadh, and what Pakistan wants from this, and also how important this is for a country such as Pakistan in the wake of the floods. We've been joined to talk more about this by Dr. Khaqan Najeeb. He's a former advisor, Ministry of Finance, as well as a senior economist. Dr. Saab, it's always a pleasure to talk economy and finance with you, because you know a lot that people like myself don't know about. Let's begin with the concerns because of global recession that that impact countries such as Pakistan, and especially Pakistan after the floods that have also devastated our country. How can the Future Investment Initiative, in your point of view, respond to challenges that are faced by this global economic order, and especially by countries such as Pakistan?
Omar, Assalamu alaikum, and always a pleasure to be on your show and PTV World especially. So, of course, Pakistan was coming into the floods with a difficult balance of payments crisis. You can call it a challenge or a crisis. It was increased due to floods, and then couple it with the exogenous, the external circumstances of a slowing global growth and a rising inflationary trend where global straight banks were tightening their monetary policies, and emerging markets were finding it hard to find monies. That's where Pakistan is. Now, floods have further inundated our crops. They have disturbed our manufacturing. They will hurt our exports. They will increase our needs of imports. So that's where Pakistan stands. But vis-a-vis Saudi Arabia, this is important because of a number of reasons. First, when we go and talk to them, we are talking to them about an oil facility. We are talking to them about re-rolling of the monies that the Saudis have in Pakistan as deposits. And thirdly, we are also talking on the sidelines about a refinery project that has been stuck since February 2019 when His Highness visited Pakistan. So these are three areas. Now, with that, if you have the opportunity to attend such a summit, you get to meet a lot of global leaders. Global leaders, not only the heads of states or the prime ministers, but people from the leading companies of the world. So you can interact with the people who sell solar in the world, who do wind in the world. And Pakistan now is looking for about 10,000 megawatts of sustained energy through cleaner sources, through sources that are available at indigenous based styles in the countries, and do not have to be based on fossil fuels that are imported and are also much cleaner and greener. So you will get to meet these people, because that's what the vision of the Future Investments Initiative is by the Saudi government. If you see their vision, they want to build a cleaner, greener Saudi Arabia when the fossil fuel industries slows down or comes to a halt, and that's the vision. So it's very appropriate in that regard. But there is another issue also that Pakistan can place itself. Pakistan has a young population. Pakistan has an English-speaking population. Pakistan has an IT and ITES trained population. Pakistani young boys and girls are now doing work across the world. So, the meta world, the world of artificial intelligence, the connectivity of Pakistan to this, we've done well in one area at least, and one must, take full pride in that. And that's the cellular network that we have, the 4G connectivity that we have, the fiber optic that we have. Things can always be improved, but we have good smartphones, we have good laptop coverage. So all in all, these two areas, the energy and the IT and the ITES, can be taken forward. I'm very uncomfortable by the amount of FDI that comes to Pakistan. I think it is, last year we had $1.85 billion of FDI, and that's been the trend for a few years. That's not a comforting number at all. For the size of Pakistan, for the kind of middle class market that Pakistan offers, for the kind of export work that can be done here, for the kind of work in the service industry that can be done here. So we should be looking to engage. But here, then the follow-ups would become very important. What does the Board of Investment do? What does the Privatization Commission do? What do our ministries do to follow up? How connected do we make them to the chambers? So all this work is on our end, which will become very important. And then the petrochemical project in Gwadar will become important.
Of course, when you talk of the petrochemical project, Dr. Saab, Saudi Arabia is apparently going to invest billions of dollars in the oil refinery in Gwadar. And of course, this refinery is meant to have a lot of oil for refinery capacity and of course a petrochemical complex. You talked about the little issues that the kingdom has with Pakistan. I hope those are resolved. But now that Pakistan is also out of the grey list, Dr. Saab, I'd like to understand, because you talked in the very beginning of our segment that this is also an opportunity to meet other important people, other important businessmen. Do you feel now that Pakistan is out of the grey list, the investment opportunities in Pakistan will increase manifold, especially from Saudi businessmen or Saudi interests?
So, Umar, having been involved in FATF, I think, and having been in Paris for a while after that and seen how this process works, let me tell you the kind of work that Pakistan has done on anti-money laundering is indeed commendable. We did, matrix of 27 these ideas that we had to implement that we did another 7, so it was commendable, and we were in the jurisdiction of FATF and then APG, so a lot of work. So to showcase that and to talk about it is important that Pakistan's now anti-money laundering laws, Pakistan's terror financing laws, Pakistan's smuggling of money laws, Pakistan's legislative work that has gone through is quite solid. Pakistan's banks are in good shape. Pakistan's whole financial sector is now gearing up for fintech as well. So for connecting Pakistan to the global world is now the time. I've always said that to move forward, we need to connect ourselves to the global world, to global value chains, whether that's in manufacturing, whether that's in IT or ITES. And FATF is one tick of the work that should be acknowledged and has been acknowledged by countries. It was a bad company to be in, and it's happy that we are no more in that monitoring list, and we've done good. So that gives comfort to the people abroad, to the multilateral organizations, to the bilateral organization, to multinationals, to multi-billion-dollar businesses. That doing business in Pakistan is no more of risk as far as the money laundering or other issues are concerned. The other issues, of course, a big market in Pakistan, and that's the other thing to showcase.
Dr. Saab, another partnership that the kingdom is looking forward is in food security. Do you feel Pakistan can provide the necessary cooperation, collaboration with the kingdom?
Omar, you've hit a topic that's very close to my heart. Honestly, I really feel that if Pakistan has to begin a huge reform, besides the energy sector, which we've talked about before, food and agriculture is the second sector that Pakistan should be thinking about. A crop-led strategy is good not only for the food security of Pakistan, but for Pakistan to become a nation which can export crops, which can sell to the world, which can have a good supply chain. And that is where Pakistan should now be engaging with people who can come and help us in the research, engaging our universities, spending good money in research and development in Pakistan, where in the next 5 years we should want to see a transformed agriculture sector of Pakistan, which can be using the technologies of today, which are again based on AI, artificial intelligence, the work that is being discussed there, and how to connect that to our farmers who can be upgraded to supply to the world. I always say that, I've worked a lot in Australia. They sell a rocks and crops strategy to the world. Rocks is their mining, but the other one is their crops that they sell to the world. All kinds of crops. And in that, they've really raised their productivity. And that is something that Pakistan should be looking for in terms of its own food security, and then being able to supply that to the world. Of course, the seafood that we can do in addition, the blue economy that we can think about. And this is the next 5 years of Pakistan, and this is the next 5-year transformational effect that Pakistan should start and do the hard work, invest in research and development, invest in our agri-universities, put them with the farmer, upgrade the farmer, educate the farmer, connect them to the global value chain, correct the supply chains. Let the government get out of this business of storing and setting prices. Let the market work. It is my belief that if we do that, not only will we help our balance of payments position of the imports that we do of edible oils, lentils, and now cotton to a huge extent, but we will also help sell more rice to the world, make a brand name in the world, increase our productivity. And it will also help your inflation, your food inflation. If you're growing better, if you're growing more productively, if you're yielding crops better, this is something that, as a nation, we must agree to do as we move forward.
That is so true. Dr. Khaqan, let's come to the key takeaways from our Premier Shehbaz Sharif's address at this Future Investment Initiative. I'd like to highlight some of the points. I would like you to comment on them and add some from your end. He talked about living through transformational times. He talked about Saudi Arabia's vision for the future. He talked about Pakistan being the fourth most popular country for freelancing. He talked about global warming, of course, rains that have affected Pakistan. And he thanked the brotherly countries that have helped Pakistan. He talked about clean energy. He talked about private enterprises that could drive the economy. He also talked about education, higher education institutions. And at the end, he talked about Pakistan that is open for business. How do you feel about these talking points of our Premier? Would you like to add? Would you like to comment on them? And do you feel what kind of impact are they going to have on those who were present in this important meeting?
So, Omar, at the high level, one could not disagree with them. It is at the micro level that will define how much we are able to follow through on these. For example, I mean, how well can we connect the private enterprise that we talk about? How well can we connect if we think that we have the fourth largest number of people who can do IT and ITES work in the world? How we can do that? So what kind of impression you leave here, but what kind of connectivity you make here? So that's the follow-up work, whether that's with the Foreign Office to follow through, whether that's with the investment organization to follow through, the ministries to follow through. So these are very, very important points. No one can disagree there. We are open for business as a signal that we need to send. The image of Pakistan being in a politically disturbed environment or in a geographically disturbed environment has to, I think, change now. I mean, we have peace and harmony as we live with our neighbors. We have peace and harmony within the country. We are moving in a space where we need to get connected to the world. So if you see what I said and what the Premier has said is exactly the same. Connecting to the world is the theme that Pakistan should drive in the future. And he's saying that we are open for business to connect to people. So it's both ways. We should be exporting our knowledge that we have for IT and ITES, and we should be importing the knowledge to improve not only our supply chains, not only our agriculture productivity, not only our connectivity in the blue economy that one has talked about. And we should be transforming Pakistan now to a place where our connectivity is not only linked to tactical relationships. It has to be much deeper, and government to government relationships are one level. But the next level is, of course, private sector to private sector relationships. I'm hoping that we can follow up this with the private sector participation, which should be involved in these kinds of talks. And here I think the role of the business community is very important. What I see one thing missing, and I hope I'm wrong here when I say this, is that our business community or our academia are not present at this kind of conference, which you're calling, the Davos of the desert. There is the government delegation, but where is the complementing private sector delegation? So one is hoping that this can be
Dr.
followed
Khaqan, I've heard of people who are attending this moot from the private sector and from Pakistan, and some of them have written articles in private publications as well about Pakistan's economic outlook and how a forum like this can help Pakistan. Now, speaking of economy, Pakistan weaves the finest of textiles. It is the fifth largest producer of dairy milk. You export rice, cotton, fish, fruits, vegetables. It is Asia's largest camel market, second largest apricot and ghee market, third largest cotton, onion and milk market. Can this be in some way beneficial to the kingdom's market, in your point of view?
Of course, you have to think about it. Pakistan is a population of 230 million people. A large part of Pakistan is middle class. A large part of Pakistan is a good consumer base. We import a lot of stuff. So whatever Saudi Arabia can sell to Pakistan, they should be interested. And whatever we, besides oil and LNG, and whatever we can export to these countries will also be very important. And they are trying to build new cities. Our human resource, a large chunk of people work there, and they would need more people. And I'm hoping that more trained people this time, not only the blue collar people, but the white collar young boys and girls who do this kind of work, who are innovators in their fields. And these are the kind of technology driven human resource that we can help them with, whether they're doing work sitting in Pakistan or going there. Then there is the medical field that we haven't talked about. That's the other area that they are thinking about developing. So Pakistan has always been a first-rate producer of medical practitioners in the country. All our universities, and I always say these are mostly public sector universities who've produced world-class medical practitioners,
True.
as you know, who go and work in the US. So Saudi Arabia is
And
now
in
trying
Saudi
to have
Arabia
this.
as well, there are a lot who are working in the kingdom as well.
Yes. And so with new kind of connectivities that you can now consult on the internet, one is hoping that these areas would also open up for Pakistan to do work. Now the Gen Z, the new generation that is coming up, they have to connect to the world and find their own opportunities.
True.
And technology would always be sovereign as we move. Digitization would be the future. We want to have people as game changers. This is the really a new game changer, right? I mean, the crypto
Yes,
world, the cloud
of
world,
course.
and that's
Lots of new
what we.
opportunities, lots of investment in new technologies or in new avenues that Pakistan's Gen Z could work together with, maybe with the kingdom's Gen Z, and maybe together forge a much stronger relationship amongst the new generation. We are in a majority nevertheless as far as Pakistan's new generation is concerned. Thank you so very much, Dr. Khaqan Najeeb, former advisor, Ministry of Finance and senior economist, to talk about Pakistan's presence at the Future Investment Initiative Summit, and of course our Premier, who addressed this summit today, and he talked about very important points that concern Pakistan and of course the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. Let's hope that this paves the way for a clearer roadmap as far as not only the relationship between the Islamic Republic of Pakistan and the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia is concerned, but also all those investors from the kingdom and from other countries that want to come to Pakistan and make Pakistan stronger through investments in different fields that Pakistan can very ably provide now that it is out of the grey list. Let's come to our second segment, and that concerns the situation as far as Palestine is concerned. 6 more Palestinians have been killed in the West Bank. Today also Amnesty International has called for the ICC to investigate the war crimes following the assault on the Gaza Strip in the month of August. More in that, but after this report.
A number of separate but interrelated incidents in occupied Palestine indicate Israeli campaign of aggression and fragility of situation underscores urgency of changing dynamics on ground. Economic and social repercussions of Israeli occupation on the living conditions of Palestinians in occupied Palestinian territory are deteriorating. In a fresh act of Israeli settler terrorism, at least 6 Palestinians have been killed and 21 wounded after Israeli forces raided several areas in the occupied West Bank. The Palestinian Red Crescent reported that the Israeli army prevented its medical crews from entering the Al-Qaryoun neighborhood to evacuate the injured. In a later development, Israeli forces bombed a civilian vehicle in the Ras al-Ain area, which resulted in the death of a Palestinian. Amnesty International has called on the International Criminal Court to investigate possible war crimes following unlawful attacks committed during Israel's deadly assault on the Gaza Strip in August. Exposing Israel's callous disregard for international law and human rights, Amnesty said that the victims of Israel's so-called precise attacks included a 4-year-old child, a teenager visiting his mother's grave, and a fine arts student killed by Israeli tank fire while at home drinking tea with her mother. The deteriorating security situation of occupied Palestine has exacerbated the plight of besieged Palestinians and necessitated ways of restoring calm and pursuing an equitable, transparent political solution.
Dr. Salma Malik, who is a foreign affairs expert, joins us online. Dr. Salma, it's always a pleasure to have you part of our show. Dr. Salma, the Palestinian issue, the Palestinian situation, since 1967, we are seeing an increase and intensification as far as the violence is concerned in the region. And of late, in the last year or so, there is another level of increase as far as this violence is concerned. Where is all of this leading to?
Thank you so much, Omar, for having me on the show. It's always an honor to be part of this show. To your question, I would actually say when we look at this time-specific map of Palestine from a territory that was 100% Palestinian, what is left now are scattered bits inside the land of Israel, which is the 15% of the original. What it is leading to is a very systematic push out of the indigenous Palestinian population, and making it show that through whatever means possible, not only do they leave the land of their forefathers, but they leave everything to the Israelis, and enabling the Israelis in this particular program are the Americans and the various interest lobbies that are siding with the Israelis and helping them achieve their goal. If you may recall, Israel advised a similar strategy to India, that you should do a Palestinization of Kashmir, and that brought about the revoking of the Article 370 in Kashmir and the type of things that Prime Minister Modi is doing. So this is giving a legal cover and also an immoral, unethical cover in very naked real politics to any act of aggression that the Israelis are doing to claim this land. And the world wants them to stay there to be a balancer in the Middle East, especially the Western lobby, so that their interests are fulfilled. And also the fact that if they stay in this area, if we go back to the Second World War and the apartheid the Israelis or the Jews faced, no one was willing to accommodate them in their homeland, while today this notion about human rights violation by the Nazi Germans is one of the biggest atrocities in the world. But the same victims, instead of being empathetic, are now doing exactly the opposite and what had happened to them. So it's a complete naked aggression and a power play by the Israelis. And the statistics that you have just counted, the latest killing, the precision of the killing and all, is a witness to the fact that they will do anything in their power to get rid of the Palestinians, and there is no end to the Palestinian plight.
Now, Dr. Salma, you talk about the resolve from the Israeli side to end as many Palestinians as possible, but a large population, a large percentage of these Palestinians is youth. In this latest incident in which 6 people were shot dead also was a youth of 19 years old. The fact remains that there is a deliberate targeting of the youth. Do you feel this tyranny that the Israelis are perpetuating on the Palestinians is going to reshape the perspective of the youth in Palestine?
Absolutely. You see, when you push someone against the wall to such a limit that there is no recourse left and there are no channels that would address the human rights atrocities and violations, you take up the things in your own hand. When the late Yasser Arafat was alive and the Israelis upped their atrocities to such an extent that the young Palestinians retaliated to the Israeli military might, the machinery and the big power that they had through stones. The fact that Intifada started this notion where they would retaliate through simple stones. What would stones do in front of heavy machinery, fire, missiles, everything? But that was a sign of what one can call their protest against the atrocities that they were facing. And the type of deaths or the killings, the pattern of the killings that you have just mentioned that are taking place is symptomatic of the fact that they want to destroy the future Palestinian generations. And they're doing every bit in their capacity, having young children being put into jail for simply talking out against atrocities, and so many other such cases which are actually now become a sad reality and a routine for the Palestinians, is very much evident that the Israelis want to crush Palestinian future generation, and they're doing everything in their power to do that particular aspect. And these killings and the Amnesty International's latest report that came out today actually talks in detail as to what is the pattern of these killings and the atrocities that are taking place and the violations that the Israelis are
Now,
carrying out against
you
civilians.
mentioned the report by Amnesty International. Let's talk about the Amnesty and its request to the ICC to take this as war crimes, what happened in the Gaza Strip in the month of August. Now, do you feel, in your point of view, Dr. Salma, that this is going to have any effect on the international geostrategic situation? Do you feel that countries that have been backing directly or indirectly Israel will maybe take some kind of a turn for the positive? How do you feel, will there be any change following this amnesty's call for investigation of possible war crimes in Gaza? We will be talking to Dr. Salma Malik as soon as we reconnect with her. Nevertheless, let's talk a little bit about the Amnesty's report that has come out, that has called for investigation of possible war crimes in Gaza. It has said so far this year at least 160 Palestinians have been killed by Israeli forces in the occupied West Bank and the Gaza Strip. It has also called on the ICC to investigate these crimes following the unlawful attacks committed during Israel's deadly assault on the Gaza Strip in the month of August. Now, Israeli forces, as we all know, have boasted of the precision of their attacks in that dastardly month of August. This was also stated by Amnesty International in this new report that was released today, that also investigates the circumstances behind all of these specific attacks that happened on the civilians. These precise attacks also targeted a 4-year-old child, a teenager who was visiting his mother's grave, and a fine art student that was killed by an Israeli tank while at home drinking tea with his mother. We've also shown that in the report. Also, an attack that killed 7 Palestinian civilians that appears apparently to have been as a result of a rocket, an unguided rocket that was likely launched by the armed groups. Now, Israel's latest offensive, of course, it talks about the offenses in Gaza that lasted 3 days, but that was ample time as far as Amnesty International's point of view is concerned, to unleash fresh trauma and destruction on the besieged population. And it asks and requests the International Criminal Court to examine these 3 deadly attacks as war crimes, as all the victims of these attacks and their families deserve justice and reparations. This, what happened in August, was just an example of so many other barbarities that the Israelis have been committing on the Palestinians. We've talked about it on various different shows. The fact remains that there is no solution to it, and no violence, no aggression can be a solution to what is happening in Palestine and what is being perpetrated by the Israelis. What needs to be done is some kind of a negotiated solution, whether it is in the form of a 2-state solution or a 1-state solution. Whatever be the case, it needs to be with all the parties concerned as part of this agreement, the Palestinian side, the Israeli side, and other parties that could broker this agreement. The United States in the past has time and again talked about a 2-state solution, but the fact remains that this 2-state solution, if is agreed upon by the Palestinian and the Israeli sides, needs to be implemented in letter and in spirit, instead of all the Palestinians that are being now taken out of their homes and their residences being occupied now by the Israelis. There are approximately 800,000 settlers who are illegally occupying a great percentage of the land in the West Bank. The indigenous population, the Palestinians, are of course resisting, but the Israelis are continuing the barbaric invasions into the homes and of course the residences of the Palestinians that have been living there since decades. This new Amnesty International report, I really hope it makes some kind of impact or some dent as far as the situation in Palestine is concerned, and that it opens the eyes to maybe some of the important countries that might go forward to broker a deal between Israel and Palestine. Thank you very much to have joined us again, Dr. Salma Malik. Dr. Salma Malik, I was just talking, when I was talking to the audience, I was talking about 800,000 settlers that are illegally occupying a great percentage of land in West Bank. But of course, slowly and steadily we hear of more land grabbing by the Israelis. It is being, of course, resisted by the indigenous population. But are they strong in their resolve when it comes to resist this resistance, or do you feel it might wane down with time?
You see, the indigenous population is very strong in their resolve, and as the youth that we were previously talking about, as they are targeted, more would be the resistance and the resilience of the indigenous population. But the very fact is that the mechanics that Israel has developed, at the end of the day, they would make it sure that the land of Palestine becomes so uninhabitable for the local population. The way they are being driven out forcefully, not willingly. No one is willingly leaving their homeland. Most of the people who are leaving Palestine or getting displaced from Palestine are the ones who are forcefully kicked out of their homeland. And then they become homeless people who have nowhere to go. Not even the Muslim brethren are trying to be as accommodating or empathetic to their perspective. And as the livelihood, the source of livelihood, everyday life becomes difficult for the Palestinians, there would come a time when they eventually would start realizing that this is not a place they can live anymore. The way their ancestral lands are being reserved, the farmlands are getting converted into Israeli settlements, the olive vineyards and all of those things are no longer available. So how do they sustain themselves? And one day they are sitting in their home and within a minute or two they are given this eviction notice. So all of these things are part of that systematic apartheid against...
Now let's talk about this latest attempts at this systematic apartheid that you so mentioned very ably. What's, in your point of view, is behind this new wave of Israeli raids and aggression in and around the old city of Nablus in the north of the occupied West Bank?
Basically because they want to expand their territories and they want to live in these places. Plus the fact that with the American administration, there is more support. During the Trump time period, the support was very evident. During Biden's government, it is slightly slowed down, not as nakedly obvious as possible. But the fact is that what the American administration wanted to get out of the Palestinian land for the Israelis has been done. It may be a toning down of the narrative, but the fact is that the policy that Western governments are adopting in favor of Israel and all are very much there. Plus the fact that the domestic politics of Israelis sort of push and compel them to carry out all of these aggressions to gain domestic popularity and increase their vote base. So doing more atrocities against the Palestinians is a sure vote gainer. And the show of muscle and the exercise of military power is that precise action, what we also see in our neighborhood, where India is doing what it is doing in Kashmir. So these are two very fascinating parallel case studies where you see that nationalism, patriotism, a heightening of the national image is carried out after carrying out atrocities against beleaguered population groups and pushing them out. So that machoism is very much part of the larger political narrative that the Israelis have evolved.
Now, in this larger political narrative that you talk about, what is the fate of the efforts that are initiated by human rights groups such as Amnesty International against the Israeli war crimes? If you look back in history, and there have what Amnesty has said is not the first time that it has said it, or other human rights groups that have talked about the Israeli barbarities. There is a documentation, there is media evidence that is given by the rights groups. International law nevertheless fails to hold Israel accountable for its war crimes. Why?
Absolutely. You see, it's so unfortunate, Omar. Whatever the watchdogs, human rights watchdogs or such bodies or civil rights groups are saying, there are also a lot of these interfaith groups operating between the between Palestine and the Israeli-occupied territories, where you have the Jewish mothers and the Palestinian mothers of the families coming together. So there's several such initiatives with regards holding up the human rights. But when you look at the narrative that comes out of this such a civic body, the distant narrative or the distance between these two nationalities is very, very stark and sharp. And despite, Mothers United and so many other groups that there are, whatever they talk about, the positions are very, very clear. But having said that, even if hypothetically we say that these human rights watch bodies are able to bring the Palestinian agenda to the core of the United Nations, and there's a whole plethora of nation states who support Palestine against Israel, but when it comes to a vote in the United Nations Security Council, there is always the U.S. which will veto any vote that goes in favor of the Palestinians. There was a time when the Americans would not allow Yasser Arafat to even join the UN Security Council in New York, and he had to go to Geneva to give his address. So, whatever championing of human rights is carried out, at the end of the day, the unfortunate plight that this is a real world with vested interests that have nothing to do with human rights or anything that is civic or civil is the name of the game. You just use these terminologies to fulfill your agenda. So whenever it suits the world bodies, they would use humanitarian interventions and right to protect in places where they want to justify their interventions. But where they see actual human rights atrocities taking place, there is no recourse to that.
That is so true. There's no recourse to that. Let's hope that this struggle by the Palestinians goes on in the right direction, and that the world finally wakes up to the realities that are being faced by the people of Palestine, and also in the same vein by the people of Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir, because as you yourself have said, Dr. Salma, that these are two parallel stories that are going on with the world not doing enough as far as that is concerned. Thank you so very much, Dr. Salma Malik, Foreign Affairs expert, to have joined us and to have talked to us about the Palestine situation in the wake of the latest attacks that have happened. Let's come to our last two stories very quickly. The first is a new survey on the impact of floods on older people in Pakistan that has revealed that hundreds of lives are being put at risk due to the decimation of health services and the rise of diseases such as malaria and diarrhea that can be killers, especially for older people who have weaker immune systems. This survey has come out from the Help Age International. It highlights that 80% of older people in flood-affected areas of Pakistan have a health condition. Only 51% have access to health care. It also talks about hundreds of older people that will die because of this. That has been stated, quote unquote, by the organization. Only basic health care centers or private clinics are available to most people, and these fail to meet the needs of most at risk. Already at risk of chronic diseases with many aging immune systems, older people in the country are also finding it hard to fight against waterborne diseases such as diarrhea, such as malaria. A large number of elderly are also working before the floods, but now only 24% are said to be working, generating some kind of an income. A worrying 61% of these who have been displaced have had to borrow money or have to get by outside the public sector workforce. Only 2.3% of older people in Pakistan receive a pension. And of course, these older people play a vital role as far as the family system in Pakistan is concerned. The report also talks about many older people that are experiencing severe anxiety as a result of these floods. A very worrying report, and I hope the report has gone to the right ears and will result in the right measures being taken by the government as well as by the private sector. Let's end with a very sad note in Balochistan, where a policeman was killed in a gun attack on a polio team in Pishin. He was guarding the polio vaccination team. That, of course, you know, there are different campaigns of giving polio vaccines to children below the age of 5, and this was happening in Balochistan. Pishin Deputy Commissioner Muhammad Yasir has said that the assailants attacked the vaccination team in the Trat area of Pishin, killing the policeman, Constable Muhammad Hashim, whose body has now been shifted to Quetta for medical legal formalities. The police have also started a search operation in the area to arrest the attackers. Now, this year, 19 cases have been reported so far as polio is concerned from different countries such as Pakistan, Afghanistan and Mozambique. That remain the three only countries that have polio cases. 19 from Pakistan, 2 from Afghanistan and 7 from Mozambique. We need to do the needful. Pakistan and its government is trying to do the needful, but then of course I fail to understand, and I'm sure a lot also do not understand, why there are such attacks on the polio teams that are only trying to help the children to have a secure future, especially in the wake of crippling diseases such as poliomyelitis. With that, we come to an end of today's newsroom. We'll see you inshallah tomorrow with new story segments that pertain to us, you and Pakistan. Stay safe and help those who are in need after the dastardly floods. Allah Hafiz.